Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Play on GAA with me, Seamus Brady. It's another one of these videos from abroad, but I just want to weigh in and give my personal opinion, my personal take on the saga of Shane Walsh, the Galway forward, his transfer, or his impending transfer to Crokes in Dublin. It's been all over the news, it's caused a lot of debate, it's caused a lot of kind of dialogue about, what we should stand for and should players be allowed to change clubs. And the first thing we have to look at when we're talking about this is only a big story and it's only big news because it's Shane Walsh, because it's one of the best forwards in the country. That's why this is big, that's why this is getting headlines. I think if this wasn't one of the best forwards in the country, people wouldn't be talking about it as much, but it is. From Shane Walsh's perspective, it's pretty clear that distance and cutting down the travel time is right up there with one of his number one goals. Don't get it wrong. There's definitely the icing on the cake here. Crokes are Dublin club champions, the Leinster club champions. They should have been All-Ireland club champions as well. I mean, if you go back and watch that final against Kilcoo last year, Crokes dominated the first half. They ran out of steam in the second half and they didn't have Paul Mannion playing for them that day. Mannion was injured. I fully believe if Paul Mannion was playing that day, Crokes would have won, because when they were having their meltdown, they would have had a match winner like Paul Mannion to turn to, and maybe he could have got them over the line. This year, with Mannion back, fully fit, and if they get Shane Walsh as well, I'd fully tip them to win Dublin, Leinster, and potentially win the All-Ireland as well, because with Mannion and Walsh in the same forward line, like, what other club team is going to have a forward line like that? It's absolutely crazy, because then you add in the likes of Shane Horan, Shane Cunningham, Callum Pearson, Darren Mullen, Hugh Kenny. Like, Crokes are very strong this year, and especially if they get Shane Walsh. I do fully agree with what Walsh has said. Walsh has talked about the travelling. He's talked about how that makes you tight going into training sessions, how it can be easier then to pick up injuries, and it definitely can. I mean, travelling a lot, it takes its toll on the body. 2.5 hours to get to training sessions, to get to matches. Kilkerran Clonberne is the club he's transferring from in Galway. They're very rural. They're proper out in the country. Moving to Crokes, where is very close to where he is spending his life. His whole life is up in Dublin. So that makes sense. The other thing as well is, this is not a new thing in Dublin football. I mean, speaking as someone who plays Gaelic football in Dublin, like, players from other counties moving and playing for Dublin clubs has been something that has been going on for ages. I mean, every team that has been successful in Dublin over the last 15-20 years has had the aid of inter-county lads from other counties coming in and playing for clubs. You've got St. Vincent's there, that won a few Dublin titles, were pretty successful. They had Enda Varley from Mayo. They had Brendan Egan from Sligo at the back. They had Nathan Mullins from Donegal. They had Joe Feeney from Armagh. They had the aid of other players. Then if you look at Ballymun Kickham's, they had David Givney from Cavan. They had Owen O'Neill from London. They had, I believe it was James Burke from Mayo. Like, these lads came in and they played for Ballymun. Then if you look at Nafina, right at the start of the decade, they had Kieran McGeaney from Armagh, one of the best players in the country at the time. The captain of the All-Ireland champions came to play for Nafina, and then they won the Dublin Club Championship, and he was such a key part and a key player in that side. Ballybowden St. Enda's, they won the All-Ireland Club Championship in 2015. In goal for them at the time was Paul Durkin, Donegal's goalkeeper and one of the best goalkeepers in the country at the time. Crokes have done it themselves too. Right in 2010, when they won the Dublin Club Championship, they had Brian Kavanagh, Longford's full forward, a brilliant forward. He was playing in that team. And then, of course, Oliver Plunkett's have had the likes of Anthony Moyles, Kieran McKeever. That was when they were right up there, successful in Dublin. So let's not pretend this hasn't been going on for ages. Of course it has. But because it's Shane Walsh, because it's literally a guy who was just kicked 9 points in an All-Ireland football final, everyone's talking about it now. Because Walsh just put in one of the best performances in All-Ireland finals that I've seen. I mean, period, about whether or not he was on the winning team or the losing team. He kicked 9 points in the final, and some of the points that he kicked was absolutely insane. You wouldn't even think about shooting from there. And not only did he score, he made it look so easy. So the fact that he's going to Crokes, a team that are already successful, already Dublin champions, already Leinster champions, definitely aiming for the All-Ireland Club Championship this year, it does make people think, this is this going to be too easy for them. It's because it's Crokes as well. It's still Oregon. It's an affluent area. It's a rich club. We're not in terms of but Crokes are a big club. They are a big club. They're one of the biggest clubs in Dublin. So for them to get Shane Walsh, that's why it's more of an issue for people than if he was going to a club that aren't already as big and as powerful and as strong as Kilmacud Crokes. Do I think the transfer should go through? It's a tough one to say. I do think it should go through. I think, look, Shane Walsh, it would definitely make his life easier because of his travelling, because his life is based in Dublin. But I can't help also feel like this might set off a trend. Because in Dublin, there are a lot of lads that come up to play college. There are a lot of girls that come up to play college. And a lot of clubs that are around these college areas. So around DCU, you have your Whitehalls, your Nafinas, your Vincents, your Ballymunkickhams, your Crave Kirons, your Clontarfs, your Raheenies. These are all very close to DCU. Then beside UCD, you have, of course, Kilmacud Crokes, Ballybowden, St. Enda's not too far away. Coola down there as well. You have a situation where if these lads are all coming up to play, college football, if they're coming up to do their studies, to do their work, could it set off a potential trend that all these clubs might be thinking, we have to, get these players to come play for us, because if we don't do that, they're going to do it. Or one of those things that it sets off a bidding war for these players. Because if Shane Walsh goes into Crokes and helps them walk the Dublin Club Championship next season, could we see this happen? Could we see this happen where the more exposure that the club championship gets now with the split season, and the more importance that gets put on the club championship, and then you've got the likes of Shane Walsh, just one of the best forwards in the country, transferring to one of the strongest clubs in the country to make them even better than they already are? Could that set off a trend of the other big clubs in the country thinking, what can we do to get in these lads into our side to make us even stronger for next season? So I would let this transfer go through, but then I would have a serious look at what we can do to prevent this becoming a trend, to prevent this becoming a thing of top players from small clubs moving to a big city and then getting poached by a big club in the big city. I would look at what we can do to make the travelling easier for those players, to make the travelling back for training, travelling for matches, or can they even train with a neutral group of lads from different clubs to make it easier for them to stick with the club that they have always been playing with. Because let's not make a mistake here, Shane Walsh is absolutely right to want this transfer. I mean, it's not like he doesn't like his club, Kilkerran Clonberne. He's been literally travelling for 2.5 hours to get to training sessions. I do fully believe he has an absolute point with what he's saying, but this could set off a dangerous trend. So I'm just saying we should look into how we should make the training sessions easier for these lads to get to in the future, so it doesn't lead to almost a bidding war for these top forwards. Let me know what you think about it. It's definitely an interesting debate. So my final stance is I would let the transfer go through, but then I would have a serious look at how we can make it easier for these top class players from clubs out in the countryside to remain playing with their club out in the countryside. First option I can think of is maybe try and set up a neutral club or a neutral training area where these lads that are up in college can train together and yet stay with their club. Because I mean, it would keep the GAA, what it's all about, the club, the parish, where you're from, and that's the way to go in my opinion. So yeah, let it go through, but then look at how we can stop things like this being an issue in the future. That's my stance. Let me know what you think in the comments below. It's an interesting debate, and yeah, until the next one, take care.